And welcome back, everyone, to Pokemon Team Creation Series. This one comes to us from Rainbow Prism, who asks the question, what is Spongebob Squarepants' Pokemon team? I'm ready for Pokemon! Ah! And there's your obligatory SpongeBob impression for the video. It's an impression I can actually do frighteningly well, so that's why I felt the need to. I can also do like an Elmo and all. I can do. I'm a man of many voices. I'm not tooting my own. I'm tooting my own horn, but I'm not like going all like I'm so amazing. No, there's voices I can't do. I acknowledge my limitations when it comes to impressions, but also acknowledge the ones I can do. And SpongeBob is definitely one of them. All right. Anyway, I'm done with that now. So SpongeBob's kind of a unique one because SpongeBob actually has so many facets you could turn into a Pokemon team. Now, right out the gate, let's get one thing out of the way. Right now, as it stands, there is no sea sponge Pokemon or even a sponge Pokemon in general. There is a sea cucumber in Pyukumuku, but that is not the same thing as a sea sponge. Same family, roughly, but different type of creature. And besides, SpongeBob is designed after a household kitchen sponge, not an actual sea sponge. His design would be very different if he was designed after a sea sponge. But there's just a lot you can do with SpongeBob. So I figure let's just start it up here. If you have a SpongeBob Pokemon team, if SpongeBob is a character in the Pokemon universe, obviously he'd probably be a human. But if you turned him into a human, but turned all of his traits, likes, whatever, into a Pokemon team, you gotta have your Gary. You gotta have his pet snail Gary on the team. The unfortunate thing is when you actually break down, and I think I said this either last video or the previous last video for Pokemon, because a snail came up on there. There is not a real snail. Hell, there's not even a real slug Pokemon that exists when you really break it down. You have Slugma and Macargo, but those are magma-based in that sense. Those are your actual snail and slug. But seeing as how we repeat so many tropes, you'd think we'd be getting more of them at this point. I'm also surprised we haven't gotten a sea slug or a sea... Oh, no, that's not true. We do have sea slugs with Shellos and Gastrodon. So we do have those. But Gary's a snail. You would think we could have had a snail. The only thing we really have beyond Macargo is the Hisui and Goodra line. Because Sliggoo and Goodra are dragon snails combined. And so I decided to go that route, but I've already done Hisui and Goodra recently, so I went with Hisui and Sliggoo instead. I went with Sliggoo because he's the weaker of the two. It makes sense that for a pet, this would make more sense. The Gary, he's also a lot more derpier, which would make sense for like the idea for Gary. And I think it just works a bit better. Still a tough Pokemon, definitely, but yeah. Another thing that is very important to SpongeBob's character is his love of jellyfishing. Now, with that, I debated back and forth. Do I want to go with a Mon that just is a jellyfish, which I have a couple options for, or do I want to go with a Mon who would be useful in jellyfishing? But the thing is, SpongeBob is actually it's the same. Jellyfish are their equivalent of butterflies. So there's no Pokemon that's a net. Now, and I don't mean uses a net. There's Pokemon that uses like webbing and stuff like that, but there's no Pokemon that is simply a net. We don't have a net-based Pokemon at this time. We got many inanimate object Pokemon, keys, swords, magnets, but not a net. So I went towards the jellyfish option. But which jellyfish do I use? Do I use the mock jellyfish of the Toad's Cruel line? Or do I go and say use Tentacruel, or do I use the Jellicent line? Ultimately, I went with the Jellicent line, and I actually went with Jellicent, particularly the male version. The reference I like here is the fact that in one episode he tried to get involved with a club, a bunch of douchebags really, and I believe it was the king, like a king jellyfish or something like that came up, and SpongeBob was able to appease him. So I like the idea that this is a reference to that, as well as being a jellyfish-based Pokemon. Now, one other thing, these next two Pokemon here are representing two very different sides of SpongeBob. Because on one hand, SpongeBob is a wimp. So Wimpod makes sense. Also, it's a seagoing creature, so that really does make sense. Wimpod, because SpongeBob really is depicted as a wimp in many different episodes. He's a wuss. The Weenie Hut General episode is Weenie Hut Jr. All that episode is a big thing. The anchor arms. Hey, Wimpy, 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 are you a wimp built like a sponge? Get yourself anchor arms. Now I'm a shark and everybody loves me. The problem is I'm not going to go Glisopod because Glisopod is actually a badass good Pokemon. I love Glisopod. I used him on my first run through of Sun. No, sorry, I had Moon. I liked Moon over Sun. But no, Wimpod makes the most sense. But counteracting that, despite the fact he's generally depicted as kind of wimpy, he's also very good at karate. Like, SpongeBob's legitimately good at karate. But for some reason, especially in the later seasons, much later, and I don't watch a lot of the later seasons. I watch, like most people, I watch like the first core 3 to 5, where it was like the actual good episodes of SpongeBob. And from what I understand, the SpongeBob episodes can still be good, but they just leaned far harder into the caricatures of the characters. And obviously the original movie was supposed to be like the cap off of the series, where he ultimately got like manager or something like. Was it manager? I can't remember what his promotion was. You know, now that we're men, well, I'm against the Gilmore Rock. It's a fun movie. That's a fun movie. I'm never in the mood to watch it, but every once in a while, if it's on TV and I'm just need something in the background, sure, why not? But yeah, SpongeBob is shockingly good at karate. Now, I consider doing something on the lower end of like the power of Pokemon with like a Tyrogue. Because it is more of it's still a powerful Pokemon, all things considered. It's just, especially for like a base stage, it's learning as it's going along, which would make more sense with SpongeBob. But SpongeBob isn't learning, he's learning more things as time goes on, but he is actually a very competent karate practitioner. So I felt like Swak being in the gi, the more offensive one, makes more sense. I think I actually had him on the last team I did too, if I'm not mistaken. Anyway, so beyond that, we also have one other hobby of his, and that is bubbles. I needed a Pokemon that represented his love of blowing bubbles, bubble creation, all that. And that really just came down to, okay, I definitely need a Pokemon that can learn Bubble or Bubble Beam. That's a given. But if I can find a Pokemon that also has a bubble incorporated into its design, that would be good too. Now, luckily, there is, in fact, a Pokemon that is that, in one line that does that, and that's the Araquanid line. I could have gone Dewpider, but a lot of this team is actually not fully evolved, and SpongeBob is a bit more capable than he appears. So I figured I'd go with the Araquanid over the Dewpider. Dewpider probably would have made more sense, but I don't know. This kind of goes to the idea of he can theoretically create anything with bubbles, and even create sentient life with them. Go figure. Bubble Buddy. So yeah. And then last but not least, the last one on the team was actually kind of the most difficult one, because I was trying to think of anything else I could use specifically with SpongeBob that would work for his team overall. And the thing that struck me was I needed a Pokemon that was just fun and vibrant and full of life, because that's ultimately what SpongeBob is. He's a young guy. I don't know if they call him a kid, but he's old enough to theoretically drive and hold down a job and own a house. So he's clearly more like a man-child, but he's got the innocence of a young boy, but he has to pay the bills of an adult. But point being, I wanted a Pokemon that was very lively, excited, full of life, and just enjoyed things. And Ash's Totodile came to mind, because I just remember that thing dancing and loving life and all that. So I went with Totodile. Add on the fact it's a water type, just is a little bit of a gravy there. Add on the fact, too, that it's a first stage to represent the more childish aspect of SpongeBob, and you have a bond that I think works on the team. So, without further ado, though, how balanced is this team? The question I always ask at the end. This particular team, So this particular team is going to get its teeth kicked in by electric types. Just just kicked the hell right in. Now, it's going to do very well against ground types. It's going to cleave through ground types and rock types. Fire types are also going to be a pretty, without any real issue. The problem then becomes on the other weaknesses this team has. Flying is going to be an issue for the fighting type. I always thought flying was strong against water, but it turns out it's neutral to water. So that's not bad. Grass types are going to be a bit of a problem, but the bug typing of Wimpod and Araquanid will have mitigate that, along with the steel typing of Sliggoo. Technically, the biggest powerhouse, if we're going base stat total wise, I don't actually know all their base stat totals on here. Hold on. Because I was just getting the images. The base stat, like, there's no ace mon on this team. If it were fully evolved, it'd be Hisuian Goodra, 100%. No questions asked, it would be. But it's not fully evolved. He'd also have the advantage of Golisopod and a Feraligatr on the team as well. So that would definitely be advantageous. But I think Jellicent and Araquanid being the fully evolved mons here might have the highest base stat total. Let me see here. So we are farmers. Okay, there's Jellicent. So its base stat total is 1620, 290. I'm actually adding it up. 290, that's one other 190. Its base stat total is 480. Araquanid's base stat total is, where'd you go? There you are. Araquanid's base stat total, just looking at it, I do not think is as high. Let's see, 242. That's 30, 34, 3. Yeah, no. The highest base stat total here, I think, belongs to Jellicent. I'll double check Hisuian Sliggoo real quick. That one I'm not 100% sure on. Let's see here. Let's see here. Sliggoo's base stat total overall. Let's see, 153, and then add that on there. That's 211. You add those on there. That's, let's see, 166, 134, or 434. Yeah, no, even Jellicent has a higher base stat total than Sliggoo does. If it were Goodra, it'd be a very different scenario, but no. So yeah, there's no real powerhouse on this team. That said, again, if they were fully evolved, it'd be a very different story, but it's not. And to be fair, I think that makes sense for a team for SpongeBob. Not a lot on this team should be fully evolved because he should be maturing as a character as he grows older. But again, he does have a couple that can hit with some decency. Sliggoo's got an immunity to poison types thanks to its steel typing. Jellicent's got an immunity to normal and fighting thanks to its ghost typing. So there are mon here that can, dish out some damage. But it's not the strongest team, but nor is it really supposed to be. It's just they're never supposed to be the strongest team you can make. They're just supposed to be, in my case, the team that best represents the character I'm doing. And in this case, that's SpongeBob's team. So, SpongeBob, you want to take it away? No problem. Thanks for watching Clockwork Highlander. Always like, share, and subscribe. And if you want more videos, you know where to ask for them in the comments below. Thanks for watching, and he'll be back with Box Office Report. Ah!